Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday webinar. My name is Lanai the Tutor, and thank you so much for joining me. If you can hear me, please type in your exam board. I think it's mostly AQA today. But if you can hear me, just to check that you can hear me, you can either say hello or type your exam board in. Okay, so today we are focusing on descriptive writing, and descriptive writing is a task that will come up for AQA students, okay? And the mark scheme is the same as narrative writing, as the narrative writing mark scheme. However, they are different writing styles, and we are going to look at some of those differences today. So when you look at the mark scheme, okay, I did this in the previous webinar, the narrative writing webinar, and we simplified what the examiner is asking us to do, okay? And if we were to simplify this, well, you are being asked to write an interesting description using big words well and organized in a way that brings the image to life in a clear and interesting way. So the focus with descriptive writing is not on a story and the events that take place in the story and how one thing leads to another, or the retelling or the narration of events. No, with descriptive writing, you are focusing on one image and the different things that can be observed in that image. And what you are being asked to do is to bring that image to life, okay? I've heard it described as, imagine you're a CCTV camera, okay? You're just watching, you're spectating, and you're relaying that to your reader through writing, okay? So some questions, some frequently asked questions about descriptive writing. We'll just go through these now because I think it is sometimes confusing for students to think, okay, what's narrative writing, what's descriptive writing, okay? So what's the difference between them? Narrative writing is plot driven, okay? Meaning it relies on your retelling of different events, whereas descriptive writing is static and it focuses on one image. So there's no movement of time in the descriptive writing text, okay? It's about focusing on the image and bringing that image to life. So the next question is descriptive writing easier than narrative writing? It's actually harder for most people, and for the reasons I just stated regarding how static it is and the fact that you have to focus on the image. You can't move from one event to the next and describe this event or describe these feelings in relation to this event. You are focusing solely on the image and you can't really insert a plot. Okay, and the other question, can I include a plot? Basically, no, you can't. It's all about the image. It's all about what you're looking at, not what could be happening otherwise or before or after. Finally, how do I revise for the descriptive writing question? So one of the things that you can do is memorize a wide and extensive range of vocabulary. So one of the challenging things about descriptive writing is you're looking at one image, right? And you're having to think about how to describe it in an interesting way, in an intriguing, compelling way. And if you have limited vocabulary, you're going to be limited in terms of how well you can bring that image to life. Okay, so memorizing an extensive range of vocabulary is one thing that you can do to prepare for descriptive writing and for the writing question in general. Plan the types of language techniques you will use and also plan the types of structure techniques you will use. Now I'm going to put on the screen something that we used in the narrative writing webinar that I did a few weeks ago. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, you can look back on my channel and you will find it. But we used this, and it's basically some things that you can prepare before the exam. So think about the language techniques that you want to use. Think about the vocabulary that you want to use. Think about the punctuation you want to use. Think about the structure techniques that you want to use as well. Don't wait till the exam to think of everything. Okay, there is preparation that you can do. And this is one of the things that you can definitely do. Like I said, emphasis on the vocabulary, okay, because that's something that can really catch people out sometimes. Also, reading is a good way of preparation. Reading descriptive writing text, okay, and that could be a Google search. You might just search, the best descriptive writing passages in literature, for example. A lot of things are available online for free. And even when you're reading, if you come across a passage where there is descriptive writing of a particular setting or even a person, that's a good way of revising, because seeing how it's done well will help you learn how to do something well as well. So, with that said, we are going to read a passage, and this passage is a description of the Red Room from the novel Jane Eyre. And we are going to be looking at how the writer has structured this, and we are going to be using part of this structure for hours. Okay, you will be expected to write for 45 minutes, planning time included. So you might actually be writing for 40 to 35 to 40 minutes, planning time included in that. So we'll read this. Okay, so I want you to notice the how it opens, how it develops, and how it ends. Okay, so the Red Room was a square chamber, very seldom slept in. I might say never. Indeed, unless when a chance influx of visitors at Gateshead Hall rendered it necessary to turn to account all the accommodation it contained. Yet it was one of the largest and stateliest chambers in the mansion. A bed supported on massive pillars of mahogany, hung with curtains of deep red damask, stood out like a tabernacle in the centre. The two large windows, with their blinds always drawn down, were half shrouded in festoons and folds of similar drapery. The windows, with their blinds always drawn down, were half shrouded. I've read that again. The carpet was red. The table at the foot of the bed was covered with a crimson cloth. The walls were a soft fawn colour with a blush of pink in it. The wardrobe, the toilet table, the chairs were of darkly polished old mahogany. Out of these deep surrounding shades rose high and glared white the piled up mattresses and pillows of the bed, spread with a snowy Marseille counterpane. Scarcely less prominent was an ample cushioned easy chair near the head of the bed, also white, with a footstool before it, and looking, as I thought, like a pale throne. This room was chill because it seldom had a fire. It was silent because it was remote from the nursery and kitchen, solemn because it was known to be so seldom entered. So we're going to stop there, because the rest of the that extract is more focused on the characters and the plot. And this is an extract taken from the novel, so of course aspects of plot are going to be included in this. As I mentioned, you should not have a plot in your descriptive writing piece. You'll be given an image and you are supposed to bring that image to life. So if we look at the sections highlighted, the writer here, they open with their overall impression, okay? It's more of a wider focus. So the Red Room was a square chamber, okay? So they're focusing on what it looks like overall, the shape of the room, okay? And then we've got some details, again, that relates to plot that might not be in a descriptive writing piece. The parts highlighted in orange, the writer is zooming in on specific objects, okay? Now, this is where sometimes people find it tricky, is to think about what to write about. But if you look at this extract, you can see how much detail is included in this. How the different aspects of the room that have been described. Like I said, they are the parts highlighted in orange. So the bed, the curtains, the large windows, the blinds, the carpet, the table. So again, this is all about building an image, and this is what we want to do when we are writing our descriptive writing response. And then finally, the concluding aspect in terms of describing the room in the way that we need to for the exam is the mood and the feeling of the setting. Okay. And again, the room was chill, so it's the temperature. Okay. It seldom had a fire, it was silent. So it's thinking more about the mood and the feeling. And that's what we want to do in our writing. So that's an example of how reading helps you to become a better writer and to prepare. I've just taken a section of this that's relevant to what we need today. But reading, I can't express enough how important that is for preparing you to become a better writer and indeed to prepare you for the exam. So today's question, in which we'll be structuring it using some of the things we've looked at, is write a description of an abandoned place as suggested by this picture. Okay, that's our question today. So the first thing that you can do when you are planning for your exam, okay, is maybe focus on 5 to 6 things and jot down some things that you can say about them. Sorry, there's a typo there. Some things that you can say about those things, okay? And then you can also think about how the objects in the image are connected and how they relate to one another. So have a moment, and I want you to take some time now, okay? Maybe 2 to 3 minutes, thinking about, it could be the things that I've highlighted on the screen, or you might pick other things as you plan. What can we say about, how can we describe the things that we can see? You can start with as simply as, you can be as simple as starting with just the nouns, just naming the things that you can see. I'll go back to our text, okay? And if you see highlighted in the yellow, how many things are named, okay? So before you can describe in detail, you get your mind to focus on what you can actually see, okay? What you can actually see, and then think about what you can say about what you can see. So you can type in, what can you see? Okay, so of the things that have been maybe highlighted or other things, what are the things that you can see in this image? So maybe spend 2 minutes jotting down the things that you can see, and please type your answers into the chat. Thank you, Sophie. Good. Yes. Fences, gates. What else can you see? Excellent start. Okay, good. Vines, foliage, excellent. Keep going. We've got just 1 more minute left, as much as you can. Excellent, yes. Grey skies, they can be used as prophetic fallacy. Good. Okay, excellent. So you've got some things there, okay? A good starting point. Wilted plants, synonyms with abandonment, good, yes. Synonymous, sorry, with abandonment, excellent, good. So now, okay, I want you to think about, so you've got fences, you've got gates, you've got the vines and foliage, you've got the grey skies, you've got the wilted plants, okay? So that's about 5 things there. That's already things that you can potentially divide into 5 paragraphs, okay? So now I want you to spend the next 2 minutes thinking about how the objects in the image are connected or how they relate to one another. Okay, how are they connected or how do they relate to one another? And this is going to help you your to develop your description. Okay, and to again bring it to life. How are they connected or how are they relating to one another? And you can insert, creativity here, almost giving them personalities as well if you want to talk about how they relate to one another. But again, think about how they are connected. Okay. What is one thing next to another? Is something entwined with something else? Okay. And then in terms of how they relate, you're getting maybe into personification there, thinking about, is there something that seems to be dominant over something else? Okay, and then it is therefore something subservient to something else. So in thinking about how the objects are relating to each other, you can start to personify the objects that you can see. So spend the next 2 minutes thinking about how the objects are connected and how they relate. And again, you can add your answers in. Excellent so far. So I'll put the timer on for 2 minutes, starting now. And that task is at the bottom of the screen if you forgot what I've just said. It's at the bottom of the picture. Okay, so the foliage and gates, they give a sense of mystery. Good. Um, how do they relate to one another? How are they connected physically in the picture as objects? Because remember, you're describing so that as someone reads your description, they can imagine it. Okay. So where is the foliage in relation to the gates? Is it on the gates, next to the gates, above the gates? But what you've got so far, that works as well in terms of the feelings created. Once, okay, good. Antiquity, I like that. Good vocabulary there. Just 30 seconds. Again, how are they connected? Could be as simple as what's next to what's above what. Yours, yes. The plants being engaged, the place dominating plants. Good. Okay. This is where I want you to go with it, okay? So you're starting to build some ideas now that can really help develop your description and bring it to life. Okay, good. So when you are faced with this in an exam situation, okay, like I said, you just jot down some ideas of what you can see, okay? For example, this is like an example of what I jotted down when I was preparing for this. So I just wrote down the ideas that came to mind when I was looking at the different aspects of this picture. Okay, so that's just an example. Just when you're planning, okay, focus on specific things and write down some of the things that you can that come to mind and develop your ideas that way. Okay, so now we are going to start writing. Okay, and we need to think as we're writing about our structure. Again, you are marked on the same, using the same mark scheme as you would be for narrative writing. Okay, so organization, content, and organization are still very important. And when we're thinking about content, this is what we've just done now, that planning and thinking, well, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to bring out of this image? When it comes to structuring your description, this is an idea of how you can structure your description. So thinking about the description of the red room that we read earlier, some aspects from that I've taken to plan a structure, okay? So your first paragraph could be your overall impression of the picture, okay? What is your overall, what's the general impression and feeling that you get looking at the picture? Obviously, the question is about abandonment, okay? The question is write down a description of an abandoned place as suggested by this picture, okay? So we already have a set theme from the question itself. So your overall impression in that first paragraph could be going into more detail about that sense of abandonment or seclusion, okay? But your first paragraph, think about your overall impression. Again, the example description that we looked at, the writer here looks at the red room, or narrates that the red room was a square chamber, okay? So again, it's that wider lens, wider perspective. Then the second paragraph, you can focus on the weather or the background. So you've already noted the, what did you say? You mentioned the gray skies, okay? So that's something that you can focus on in the second paragraph. And then paragraph 3 to 5, you can start to zoom in on objects and how they relate to other objects as well, okay? So you mentioned the wilted plants, the foliage, the gates, the rusted fences, the vines. You can then pick your 3 main focuses, okay? But you can then also, within those paragraphs, talk about how they're relating to other objects as well, okay? And then in the 6th paragraph, you can then write about your concluding feeling, okay? And this isn't your concluding feeling, it's the concluding feeling that you as a writer might impose on the object, okay, from what you can observe. So again, this is about bringing the image to life. So what do the objects in the image look like they might be feeling? If they could speak, what might they say? Okay, so you conclude on the feeling and the mood of the image and of the objects. Okay, so just to distinguish, the first paragraph, the opening paragraph, is your impression. Okay, what are you seeing? The focus is on your impression. And then the 6th paragraph is the focus on what they might be feeling. Okay, and again, it is using personification because objects don't actually have feelings, but we're using this to try and bring to life what we can see. Okay, if you have any questions about anything I'm saying, please, you can ask them and I will address them. Okay, so now we're going to actually write out our response. Okay, so for each section, I'll put 5 minutes. Okay, so we're going to take each paragraph one by one. Okay, and you're going to write it out with the prompts that are on the screen. Now, it might be the case that the things that you've pointed out or the things that you want to describe are different from what I want to describe. that's fine. You can use the prompts on the screen as you need them, okay? As you need them. So we're writing the first paragraph, okay? So what's your overall impression as a spectator? Spectator meaning an observer. You're not involved, okay, in any way. You are just spectating, okay? So you are, again, writing this as a descriptive piece. There is no plot, there is no character involvement or anything like that. So you are spectating. So how would you describe the scene? Okay, so think, is it pristine, derelict, abandoned, grand? And secondly, how do you think it may have looked in the past? Okay, so from what you can see, how do you think it might have looked in the past? Again, you're helping to bring what's in front of you to life. Yes, it's a movement in time, in thinking about what it might have looked like, but it's doing so in order to bring what you're seeing to life. Okay. And this is appropriate for this particular image because it's an abandoned image. Okay. Therefore, that can help you bring that to life. Okay. The fourth bullet point, focus on one object giving you that impression. So whatever impression it is that you have overall, okay, which object is giving you that impression, okay? And then in the fourth bullet point, maybe you can come back to the present state, okay? So the impression that we're talking about in the third bullet point is the impression of what it might have looked like in the past, okay? And then what after 5 minutes of writing, we will look at an example paragraph, but I want you to try and write an opening paragraph focusing on your overall impression. Aim to use ambitious vocabulary, okay? And try and introduce an idea, okay? So, for example, we've got abandonment, we've got neglect, and I'll show you in my example paragraph how I introduced an idea. But if you introduce an idea, that's something that you might be able to repeat, okay, as a motif throughout your response, okay? So, do you have any questions? I'll put the timer on for 5 minutes. So this is 5 minutes writing time. Ah, it's frozen. Hmm. My computer has frozen. I'm just going to check if I'm still visible online. Oh dear. No, no. Hello? My computer has frozen. Don't make this work. In Jesus' name I pray. Oh, 25. Mm, mm. I pray that this may. Oh, is it? Ah, it's Chrome. Chrome is frozen. StreamYard doesn't work. Sorry. Oh, I'm back online. Okay. Sorry about that. My little, I'm back on. Okay. So hopefully you've been able to write your paragraph in that time. Sorry, my browser just froze. My browser froze for a few minutes there. Um, okay, so hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully you've been able to write a paragraph. But anyway, we will look at the example now. Okay, so you might start with sequestered and abandoned. Sequestered meaning isolated. The overgrown estate is surely a shadow of its former self. The grandeur of its past is apparent in the crown that sits above the gates. A delicate pattern of curled iron flows into some ambiguously beautiful shape. Upon prolonged inspection, the image clears. The silhouette of two swans kissing forms a love heart at the top of the entrance. Someone loved this place once. Now, the rusty gates, the untamed weeds, the engulfing ivy tell a tale of total abandonment. So, I've I've included the bullet points in the sense that, especially with the idea, the introduction of an idea there, I've introduced the idea of someone loved this place once, okay? And I've connected that with that image of the swans, the profile of the swans at the top, okay? So that's an example of an opening paragraph. So the overall impression as a spectator is that impression of abandonment, okay? And I've got that in the opening phrase, sequestered and abandoned. So it's isolated, okay? It's abandoned. And then I've chosen my adjectives there, again, sequestered, abandoned, and how it's overgrown as well, grandeur of its past. So that's moving on to the second bullet point. Okay, how do you think it may have looked in the past? Okay, and again, that's apparent from what I describe as the crown on top of the gates. And the focus on one object that gives me that impression again, that is that decoration at the top of the gate that looks like that I would describe as a crown. And then I've come back to the present state, okay, when I've said now, okay, now the rusty gate. So that's a return to, okay, what we're looking at in the present. Now, the idea that I've introduced, I'm linking it with what I can see. So that profile of the swans at the top, okay, it's an image of love because it forms a love heart, okay? So I've created out of that idea of someone having loved the place, and that links with the sense of abandonment because it's in the past, okay? It doesn't seem like it's loved anymore, okay? Right, so for the second paragraph, think about describing, or no, don't think about it, describe the weather, okay? Describe the weather. So again, here we want to use ambitious vocabulary, aim to use personification, similes, metaphors. All these play a huge role in bringing your description to life. So first bullet point for your prompts, which adjectives would you use for the weather? Is it threatening? Is it brooding? Is it dark? Is it bright? Is it beaming? Is it morose? Morose meaning sad and miserable. Do they contrast or match the rest of the image? So the weather, it should say, does it really? Does the weather contrast or does it match the image? So again, you're thinking about how things are relating to one another. That helps to build your description. And then what mood is the weather creating? Okay, so think about the adjectives that you might use for that. Is it gloomy, melancholic? Is it buoyant, which is basically cheerful? So 5 minutes. Actually, we don't have 5 minutes for that, but you can make a start. We'll say 2 minutes. Obviously, that's not enough time to necessarily write a full paragraph. Or you can start to think about those bullet points. Maybe you can write 1 or 2 sentences. And then we'll have a look at the example paragraph. I've added some more time. We do have enough time. Sorry, the webinars are usually from 6 to 7. If we're going we started at 6:15. We're going to finish at 7:15. Sorry, I just got a bit confused there. But yes, you've got 3 more minutes. Okay, 3 more minutes to try and write a paragraph describing the weather using the prompt on the screen. Final few seconds, and then we'll look at the example. Okay, hopefully you've been able to start getting some ideas down for your paragraph. Okay, so an example. Above it, simmering and brooding, the formless dark clouds hang thick. They are a fitting backdrop for the sullen estate. A ticking rain bomb, soon they will shower a dreary downpour. Their melancholic gloom stretches as far as the eye can see, without so much as a hint of sunshine. Okay, so that's that paragraph describing the weather. And again, I start there with that prepositional phrase above it because we want our ideas to be linked. You're building a picture. So prepositional phrases are quite important here because you want your reader to be able to picture, okay, what it looks like. Of course, we know that the sky is, the clouds are going to be above everything. But that's just I just took that as an opportunity to emphasize the importance of prepositional phrases because you want your reader to be able to really vividly imagine the scene that you are describing. Okay. So the next paragraph, okay, you can start to zoom in, okay, on your specific objects. It could be one or two objects I've said there, because again, they're not in isolation here, like the gates with the ivy entwined all over the gates. It's kind of suffocating the bottom of the fence there. So the objects are closely related to one another, okay? So you want to be able to express that in your writing. So zoom in, like I said, on one or two objects, okay, and write a sentence for each of the bullet points. Again, you don't have to do it like this, but it is a guideline to just help you get started. And again here, use ambitious vocabulary and focus on your language techniques throughout, but again, as a focus with this section. There's something else I wanted to say. So for the previous paragraphs, yes, we focused on specific objects, but now specific things are taking center stage, okay? So for the opening, that the crown at the top of the gate there, that was being used to as a sort of example, okay, of the grandeur that we imagine of that was in the past for this setting. However, now your objects are taking center stage, okay? Right, so again, you can type in uh, any of your responses if you want feedback on them. Even if you're still working on the first one, that's fine. But for this one, you have 5 minutes again, focusing on the one or two objects. So the first bullet point, which adjectives would you use for the first object? Okay. Is the object affected by anything else in the image? What personality would you give the first object? And then which adjectives would you use for the second object? And also what personality would you give the, sorry, it should say second object there, it says first again, okay? So the box on the screen, you can see the boxes around, it's got the gates there, the fence there, but also the foliage. So you can relate a lot of those things to each other. Okay, 5 minutes, starting now. Okay, over halfway through the 5 minutes. Well done, keep going. Just 1 minute, 30 seconds left. Okay, thank you for that. So the price from the shop warned others not to enter the southern states, and these bars were trapped even if the gates attempted to welcome citizens with open arms. Yes, there is that contrast, isn't there, of those spikes sort of warning people away, versus the open gates. I picked up on that as well in one of my paragraphs. So the example paragraph reads as follows. The gates guarding the neglected garden are wide open. They are glued in that position by the mass of ivy, grass, and weeds. Having spread its suffocating empire to span the base of one side of the fence, the ivy's menacing trail towers and is soon to engulf the crowning swans. The thorned fence warns intruders away, but it cannot resist the intrusion of trees growing over and through its gaps. Okay, so similar ideas there that we've got, just expressed differently. But yeah, great. Um, right, next one then. So I think this will be the final paragraph. So what we'll do is we'll skip the zooming in paragraphs, okay? And we're going to look at how you can conclude, focusing on a feeling and mood, okay? So, how do you think the object might feel about its current state? So, for example, liberated, neglected. Do you think different objects may have different feelings about their current state? What might have been different in the past? And focus again on the present in state in your final sentence. So in this one, okay, again, using ambitious vocabulary, using literally language devices, I was going to say literary devices, use a short sentence for effect, and then repeat the idea introduced in the first paragraph if you had one. So again, in my first paragraph, the idea that I introduced is the one highlighted there. Someone loved this place once. So I'm going to reintroduce that back in the ending. It's using repetition. It creates a cyclical structure as well in my description, which is good. And so, okay, for that concluding paragraph, what's the concluding feeling and mood of the object? So it's not yours, it's the concluding feeling of the image or the object. So use those prompts once again, 5 minutes. Okay, 2.5 minutes left. Okay, just under 1 minute left. Okay, good. So yes, hopeless. Good. That's a good. That's a fitting emotion, I think. A sense of hopelessness. Excellent. Okay, so an example. The neglected estate invites you in, warning that time and entropy meaning disorder, will continue its merciless destruction without intervention. The gates welcome you with open arms, but the overgrowth threatens to form an impenetrable bulwark, meaning a wall, a defensive wall. Someone answered the call to care once, but not today. So that's my repeated idea. So from the opening, today the green grounds grow unguarded, and totally abandoned. So they have got alliteration at the end there, and the feeling of abandonment, of neglect is mentioned. The idea of the warning as well. Okay, the gates welcoming you in again, but the overgrowth you can see in between the gates is almost forming, like again, like I said, that wall, that defensive wall, um, warning people away. So that's an example of how I've done it. But yes, great. The idea of hopelessness again that you mentioned in your paragraph, okay, is a powerful one that you can develop. Obviously, you only had 5 minutes at a time. So what you've got now, you can actually build that up and develop that a little bit more. But well done for today, and well done for your hard work and tuning in. And well done to everybody who'll be watching on replay and all the hard work that I'm sure you are doing during the webinar. And if you are interested in joining any of my classes, then I have a GCSE mastery group on Thursdays, a GCSE writing group on Thursdays as well, 6 to 7. And then I have 11 plus and Key Stage 3 groups on Fridays. So if you're interested in any of the groups, you can go to my website, www.lanaithetutor.com, and everything is available to book from there. But thank you again for joining, and well done for today. And I'll see you next week for another webinar. So yes, that's it for today. Bye.